Hello everyone. We have received news that SALWAN MOMIKA was murdered in Sweden by Islamic extremists. Why was SALWAN MOMIKA murdered? Most likely, it is related to his Quran burning in 2023. Now, besides discussing SALWAN MOMIKA's murder, in this video, we will also talk about why many people burn the Quran. Islam is not the only religion that is disliked. Every religion has certain groups of people who do not like it, but we do not hear news about their holy books being burned. Only the Quran is burned by many people. If you want to know why many people burn the Quran, watch this video until the end, okay? This is from CNN World, the 30th of January, 2025. Man who staged Quran burning protests in Sweden shot dead, authorities say. SALWAN MOMIKA, an Iraqi man who sparked outrage by staging Quran burning protests in Sweden in 2023, has been shot dead, according to Swedish authorities. A spokesperson for Sweden's prosecutor's office confirmed to CNN that MOMIKA was shot dead in capital city Stockholm on Wednesday. Stockholm police told CNN that 5 people had been arrested on Wednesday night on suspicion of murder. MOMIKA was on Thursday set to be handed a verdict in a trial where he was accused of incitement to racial hatred. Goran Lundahl, a lawyer for Stockholm's district court, told CNN. This sentencing has now been postponed. In 2023, MOMIKA told CNN that he had come to Sweden from Iraq in 2018. He said he had carried out the demonstrations because he believed the Quran should be banned in the world because of the danger it causes to democracy, ethics, human values, human rights, and women's rights. It just doesn't work in this time and age. Swedish authorities had at first attempted to prevent MOMIKA from staging protests by denying him a police permit to demonstrate. This decision was later overturned by Stockholm's Court of Appeals, citing freedom of speech. An account on X, purporting to be MOMIKA, regularly posted updates on his 2025 trial to more than 230,000 followers. The account also regularly posted anti-Islam sentiments. Earlier this month, the account was asking for donations to go towards a lawyer, who would reportedly help MOMIKA gain asylum in the United States. A prosecutor will now be in charge of investigating the murder, the Stockholm police spokesperson said. Security services will also be involved in the investigation, as there is a risk that MOMIKA's murder could be linked to foreign powers, Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson told a press briefing Thursday, according to public broadcaster SVT. This is from Courthouse News. Quran burner shot dead in Sweden. 5 arrested. An Iraqi refugee in Sweden who repeatedly burned the Quran in 2023, sparking outrage in Muslim countries, has been shot dead, investigators said Thursday, with Sweden's prime minister suggesting a foreign power might have been involved. Prosecutor Rasmus Oman confirmed to AFP that an investigation had been opened into the murder of 38-year-old SALWAN MOMIKA and that 5 people had been arrested. We're in the very early stages. There's a lot of information gathering. 5 people have been detained, suspected of involvement in the crime, Oman said. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson told reporters at a news conference, I can guarantee that the security services are deeply involved in this because there is obviously a risk that there is also a link to foreign power. A Stockholm court had been due to rule Thursday whether MOMIKA, a Christian Iraqi, was guilty of inciting ethnic hatred, but said it had postponed its ruling until the 3rd of February as a result of his death. Police responded late Wednesday to a call about a shooting in an apartment building in the city of Södertälje, south of Stockholm, where MOMIKA lived. There they found a man who had been shot and who later died in hospital, a police statement said. Several media outlets reported that the shooting may have been broadcast live on social media. The Aftonbladet newspaper said the attacker was able to gain entry into the building through the roof. Protests in 2023. In August, MOMIKA and fellow protester Salwan Najim were charged with agitation against an ethnic group on 4 occasions in the summer of 2023. According to the charge sheet, the two desecrated the Quran, including by burning it, while making derogatory remarks about Muslims on one occasion outside a Stockholm mosque. "I'm next on the list," Najim wrote on X after MOMIKA's death, telling Swedish media that he had received death threats. Relations between Sweden and several Middle Eastern countries were strained by the pair's protests. Iraqi protesters stormed the Swedish embassy in Baghdad twice in July 2023, starting fires within the compound on the second occasion. In August of that year, Sweden's intelligence service SAPO raised its threat level to 4 on a scale of 5, saying the Quran burnings had made the country a prioritized target. The Swedish government condemned the desecrations at the time but noted the country's constitutionally protected freedom of speech and assembly laws. Deputy Prime Minister Ebba Busch on Thursday called the killing a threat to our free democracy, which must be met with the full force of society. Local anger. Many residents in the Hovsö neighborhood of Södertälje that AFP approached about the killing were tight-lipped on Thursday. But the owner of a kiosk, a man in his 50s who spoke on condition of anonymity, told AFP, "It wasn't good what he did with the Quran, burning it. If you don't like Muslims, fine. But why go on TikTok and say stuff like that?" he said. Samira Mete, a 72-year-old pensioner who has lived just 2 streets away from the scene for more than 50 years, meanwhile said the killing made her angry. "We don't want things like that going on near us. We want people to live freely," she said, wiping a tear away with her scarf. "Don't want to harm Sweden." Speaking to Aftonbladet in April 2023, MOMIKA said he never intended his Quran burnings to cause any trouble in Sweden, where he had lived since 2018. "I don't want to harm this country that received me and preserve my dignity," he said. In October 2023, the Swedish Migration Agency revoked his residency permit, citing false information in his original application, but he was granted a temporary one, as it said there was an impediment to enforcement of a deportation to Iraq. The month before, Iraq had requested his extradition over one of the Quran burnings. Before arriving in Sweden, MOMIKA's social media accounts tell a story of an erratic political career in Iraq. It included links to a Christian armed faction during the fight against the Islamic State group, the creation of an obscure Syriac political party, rivalries with influential Christian paramilitaries, and a brief arrest. In October 2023, a Swedish court convicted another man of inciting ethnic hatred with a 2020 Quran burning, the first time the country's court system had tried the charge for desecrating Islam's holy book. Prosecutors have previously said that under Swedish law, the burning of a Quran can be seen as a critique of the book and the religion and thus be protected under free speech. However, depending on the context and statements made at the time, it can also be considered agitation against an ethnic group. This is from Wikipedia about SALWAN MOMIKA. SALWAN Sawa Matthew MOMIKA was an Iraqi refugee in Sweden. He was a former militia member of the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, or PMF. After leaving Iraq, he lived in Sweden as a refugee. He was an atheist, anti-Islam activist, known for organizing public demonstrations where he burnt and desecrated the Quran. MOMIKA was assassinated on the 29th of January 2025 during a live broadcast on TikTok. Background: MOMIKA came from the Al-Hamdaniya district of Karakosh, a town in the northern Iraqi province of Nineveh. He was an ethnic Assyrian and raised as a Syriac Catholic. During the Iraqi Civil War, when Christians became persecuted by the Islamic State of Iraq, the precursor of ISIS, MOMIKA joined the Assyrian Patriotic Party and worked as a security guard for the party's headquarters in Mosul. According to Iraqi government sources, MOMIKA fled his hometown in 2012 after the local court found him guilty of causing a wrongful death during a car accident and sentenced him to 3 years of imprisonment in Badush. After the fall of Mosul to ISIS militants in June 2014, MOMIKA joined the Popular Mobilization Forces PMF to fight against ISIS. Specifically, he has appeared in videos in military uniform as a part of the Christian unit Spirit of God Jesus Son of Mary Battalion, Kataib Ruhollah Isa ibn Miriam, brandishing firearms and pledging allegiance to the Imam Ali Brigades, to which the Christian unit is a part of, which are a PMF faction and part of the Islamic movement of Iraq. The Imam Ali brigades are known to have close connections to Iran and is considered to be an Iranian proxy. The brigades were also accused of committing war crimes and engaging in sectarian violence. MOMIKA also founded the Syriac Democratic Union and the Falcons of the Syriac Forces in 2014, an armed militia which was affiliated with the Christian militia Babylon Brigade, the armed wing of the Babylon movement. In 2017, MOMIKA was involved in an internal power struggle with fellow Babylon movement leader Ryan al-Kildani, which he lost. He fled the country as a result. It's said that MOMIKA was also affiliated with the Syriac Assembly Movement, a political party that received support from the government of the Kurdistan region, activism, immigration to Sweden. In 2017, MOMIKA fled to Germany with a Schengen visa, where he announced his atheism and apostasy from Christianity. In April 2018, MOMIKA applied for a refugee visa to Sweden, and he was since then registered as an Iraqi refugee until April 2021, when he was granted a 3-year temporary residence permit, which was due to expire in April 2024. MOMIKA was denied a permanent residence necessary to acquire Swedish citizenship because he lied in his asylum application by denying that he was in the Imam Ali brigades, claiming that he was associated with the political branch and not the paramilitary branch of the movement. He was seen in pictures outside the Riksdag along with Robert Half, a member of the Riksdag for the Christian Democrats. He also had a meeting with Julia Kronlid, a member of the Riksdag for the Sweden Democrats. MOMIKA later stated that he wanted to run for election to the Riksdag as a candidate for the party. After he was granted a residence permit in Sweden, while still under investigation for his associations with the pro-Iranian militant group, he threatened a man with whom he shared accommodation with a knife, which resulted in him being convicted for unlawful threats the following year. He was sentenced to probation and community service. Quran burnings. In 2023, MOMIKA arranged a series of demonstrations against Islam. MOMIKA posted dozens of videos online, often with majority Muslim country names in Arabic as hashtags, prior to the Quran burnings. During these demonstrations, he desecrated the Quran and burned it with police protection and legal permission. The Quran burnings were accompanied by attacks towards MOMIKA. Also in 2023, the Swedish Migration Agency decided that MOMIKA was to be expelled from the country. Due to threats against him in Iraq, the expulsion could however not be exercised, and he thus received a new temporary residence permit until April 2024. Deportation from Norway. On the 27th of March 2024, it was reported that MOMIKA had left Sweden for Norway to seek asylum. Shortly after his departure, there were reports in social media that he had been found dead in Norway, but Norwegian police appeared to deny the rumors. On the 4th of April, Norwegian police announced they had arrested MOMIKA on the 28th of March, and that they planned to deport him back to Sweden based on the Dublin regulation. He was transported back to Sweden on the 11th of April. Death. MOMIKA died on the 29th of January 2025 at the age of 38 after being shot in an apparent assassination. It happened at his home in Södertälje during a TikTok livestream. 5 arrests have been made in connection with the shooting, according to a Swedish prosecutor. As a result of his death, his verdict in the Quran burning case was postponed until the 3rd of February. Well, we know that Islam is not a good religion. Islam teaches hatred toward other religions and even commands Muslims to kill people of other faiths. What we should do is fight against those evil Islamic teachings. But why do so many people burn the Quran? Quran burning has actually been happening for a long time, since the early days of Islam, and it was even first done by the Muslim leader. Let's read this article. One of the most controversial events, when measured by the standards of today's Muslims, is the legal burning of a number of mushafs during the reign of Caliph Uthman ibn Affan. As is known, many companions also wrote down the verses of the Quran conveyed by the Prophet, but it was only as a personal collection. Between one mushaf and another mushaf are not the same. Some mix up the verses and the Prophet's explanation of the verses, but the author has his own code to distinguish between the verses and the Prophet's Explanation. There are also those who still include the verses that have been deleted, mansukh, without a specific code, not to mention the increasing number of types of readings, qira'ah, along with the increasing development of Muslims outside the Arabian Peninsula at that time. Based on this development, Caliph Uthman ibn Affan formed a team for the unification and codification of the Quran whose members were senior and junior companions, of course those who had good memorization. Among the famous figures who served in the team were Zaid bin Thabit, who was better known as the Prophet's personal secretary, plus other companions such as Abdullah bin Zubair, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqash, and Abdurrahman bin Haris bin Hisham. In addition to being known as people who actively wrote revelations, they were also known as reliable memorizers of the Quran, al-Hafid, and had been involved in the limited codification and unification of the Quran in the time of Abu Bakr, which produced the Mushaf al-Bakariya Nisbat to Abu Bakr. This Mushaf was kept in the house of Hafsa, one of the Prophet's wives. The Mushaf al-Bakariya, which was completed in the 12th year of AH, was borrowed by the team to be used as one of the important references, in addition to presenting witnesses and comparing a number of mushafs from the personal collections of the companions. After the team members had completed their work in the 25th year of Hijriya, a manuscript was created that was agreed upon by the companions. This manuscript was then called the Uthmani manuscript. Zaid bin Thabit was asked to rewrite or duplicate this final manuscript, and the original manuscript from Hafsa was returned, and the newly completed one was duplicated as many as 7 copies and then sent to several regions as a standard manuscript. After everything was finished, a new problem arose. What about the personal manuscripts collected by the team? If thrown in the trash, it would certainly be problematic because the sacred manuscripts were not trash. If returned to their owners, it was feared that it would cause controversy in the future because one manuscript was different from another. Finally, it was decided by the team with the approval of Caliph Uthman. Apart from the al-Bakariya manuscript and the Uthmani manuscript, it was burned. The source of the burning of a number of al-Quran manuscripts can be seen in the book Mabahiths fi Ulum al-Quran by Manna al-Qattan, page 139, and other Ulum al-Quran books. The burning of the al-Quran manuscripts at that time was witnessed by many people, and no one objected to the burning. It is even quoted in the book Al-Mashahif, especially in the chapter Ittifaq al-Nasma'a, Uthman ala Jam al-Mushaf, page 177. Sayyidina Ali said, "If Uthman had not done so, then I would have done it." The policy of burning a number of al-Quran manuscripts during Uthman's time was considered a smart idea by a number of scholars later. If this method had not been taken, it can be imagined that it would have caused controversy and perhaps even great slander in the development of the Islamic community. Al-Quran manuscripts that are worn and crumpled to the point where they are difficult to read are advised by many ulama to be burned, not thrown in the trash along with other dirty rubbish. So, according to the article we just read, the Quran that exists today was actually compiled by Uthman ibn Affan after Muhammad's death. We have no evidence that the Quran compiled by Uthman ibn Affan is the same as the revelation supposedly given to Muhammad because all the original evidence was burned. Even at that time, the burning of the revelations given to Muhammad was considered a good thing by Muslims, but it was seen as a better option than throwing them in the trash. Now, coming back to the present day, why do so many people burn the Quran? SALWAN MOMIKA burned it clearly because he disliked its content, but there is another reason that is rarely discussed in public. Muslims themselves challenge it. Here is one of the comments from my channel. Abdullah said this: "If you burn the entire Quran and its factory at once, then the same Quran will appear not long after, because the Quran is in the memory of many memorizers." Abdullah didn't say this without reason. The reason is that he was taught this by his teacher. Here is one article that proves it from Sindo News. If the Quran is thrown into fire, it will not burn. Here's the explanation. Al-Quran al-Karim is not made by creatures. It is the noble Kalamullah, words of Allah Azza wa Jal, which were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. One of the miracles of the Quran is as conveyed by the Prophet in the following hadith. From Uqba bin Amir radiallahu anhu said that the Messenger of Allah said, "If the Quran is made into leather and then thrown into the fire, it will not burn." Hadith ad-Darami. So, there are indeed many boastful claims made by Muslims about the Quran. The idea of burning the Quran came from Muslims themselves. Burning the Quran is one of the challenges posed by Muslims. Some say the Quran cannot be burned, and others claim that if every Quran in the world were burned, it would be perfectly restored down to the last comma. Of course, big claims should be proven. And when tested, it turns out that the Quran can be burned. And Muslims know that if every Quran in the world were destroyed, they would not be able to reproduce it exactly as before. They must prevent this proof from happening to keep their false claims intact. So, they make the claim, they challenge others to prove it, but when their claim is disproven, they get angry and accuse others of insulting Islam. They do not even hesitate to kill people who prove Islam wrong. That is why, once again, I remind you to stay away from Islam. Islam is a false and dangerous religion. That's all for this video. See you in the next one. Jesus bless you.